especially emergency management people, are talking about common operational pictures, it's largely with what we call in the GIS world dots on a map. So seeing dots on a map, dots for schools, dots for hospitals, dots for this, polygons for that, that's all well and good, but what we really want to do is make that intelligent and be able to use it for analysis so they can ask questions of the system and get answers in order to base their priorities and their response activities. What we prefer to see are digital formats in vector format, lines, polygons, points, and raster information that can be made transparent. And in that way, we can then do GIS analysis, spatial analysis for creating actionable intel.
Let me give you a very high-level look at the way in which the data moves. One of the key elements, though, is that you have that non-geospatial data, incident information about incidents. In this case, if I come over there and click, I've got inland flooding of a creek tributary. Well, this has been a report. It happens to have a location that somebody might very well give, either in terms of a latitude and longitude coordinate, or it's north of the big rock. So we have the discipline that is added through putting things through the USGS-Core is the ability to be able to provide a spatial component to that. So back there where you saw that picture with all the non-geospatial information and the common operational data link, that's part of the orchestration that is done in the middleware to give a geospatial reference to non-geospatial information. What happens when that comes into the USGS-Core is that it is automatically shared. And let's go out to a Google Maps-based application here. And in fact, over here, I've already pulled up that inland creek flooding that exists there. Actually, let me go back to the beginning, where we've got the flooding that's taking place. Same information that you saw on that other map here in a different format, giving some textual information as well as the geospatial information. Here's my inland flooding. What I discover in this application is that I have that inland flooding, and there's some other associated information. There's an upstream flooding source, and if I come back and hit that, I'm going to get the picture that's associated with it. This picture, as I mentioned, happens to be associated with and pass through the OGC sensor observation standard because we needed a place for human sensors to be calculated and providing their information. And we chose that standard because it mirrors, the human process mirrors any of the other information that's going to be composed. If I come over here to WebEOC, largely a text-based system, I'm able to pull over there, and there's that inland creek flooding again. If I want to take a look at that inland creek flooding, I've got it with a little bit of information here associated with it. I can also now begin to move information back and forth between the, let's call them the GIS components, let's say the OGC components. And what I want to do here is say, you know what, I've got that emergency going on, and I want to find out and highlight any of the schools, let's say, that are within a certain area of that particular incident. So I'm going to highlight those schools. So I've got 4 schools that are nearby this thing. And I could go off and do buffers and other things associated with that. Just to click on that to show you can create buffers. But now, instead of saying to the emergency management community, hey, we got problems at the schools, and tell them, go out and discover that layer of schools, I've now identified 4 schools, and I am going to come over here and be able to select either a KMZ if it's available and happens not to be out of this service, thus another lesson, a JSON component. I can say these are actually schools over there, and I'm going to say share those out. Now I'm now pushing that out back into that usage middleware as a OGC map context layer. And it'll take a second for it to percolate through the system, but I'm going to show you what that will look like over here. If I were to take a look, oh, it got there already. That was fast. So there's the map context layer that I just got from somebody else. What I can now do is hit that, click over here, and I can submit that back into my own map context. So I've now taken that data out of 1 million schools, identified the ones that are in a buffer zone around an incident, passed it out to everybody who's going to be able to see that information, bring it back into my own GIS, and if I
well before the storm, this is a point that was made earlier, we have to make the plans. We have to have the information set, staged, understood about what's going to happen. This is a proof sheet on our map. So again, it's important to know that we need to convey these things to people, but something that's really changed, it's been 9 years since Katrina, is the mobile device. We're dealing with forecasts. We're at the same time, and this is where again, thinking about the data, the sensor information is coming in. We've got a number of stream gauges, tide gauges, and other kinds of sensors, for that matter, even buoys out in the Gulf that we're tracking when the storm's approaching to see, what the environment looks like. This is our HydroWatch site where we identify all the places where we have stream gauges. So this is one of the things that we want to operationalize through services where we can hit the sensor information that's being provided. The red marks on this are USGS gauges. The blue ones are river gauges from the Corps of Engineers. And we'd like to be able to, again, collect that information in real time, turn it around as a service, and put it out to people on their mobile devices. During the storm, we put together immediately after the storm, we put together a search and rescue grid for the New Orleans area that could be used by all these responders coming in from all over the countryside. And an important part of, I think, the services, again, I've been playing with the GeoName service, for example, is to be able to put targets on maps that come from up-to-date information. This is another important function that we have in our response. Identifying, we get data from HDDS, and a lot of imagery comes flowing in during these events. We need to find out what areas are flooded. Great way to do that is with aerial photography and satellite imagery. That gets done and turned into features. And key is, and this was discussed earlier, making sure we have access to features through services, not just imagery.
The top layer you see right here is USGS Hydro NHD, which is one of the WMS services that I was able to connect to and work from USGS. And it actually is a pretty decent thing for giving me fairly quick hydrologic units. But to tell you the truth, I would much prefer, instead of a WMS for that, to have a WFS for that.
This is a primary go-to for me. What we're actually doing is, you guys have your listing of REST endpoints, and we actually grab that REST endpoint and we put it in our app store, but it's not necessarily an app. What it really is it's web services, but it's a point to where folks can come in and discover your services even using our store. So anything that's GeoInt related, we are trying to get in our store.
Just to clarify, our definition of app is we're trying to be all things to all people. So an app can be, an ArcGIS script you wrote. It can be some web service endpoints. It can be a web page. It can be a iOS or an Android file app to install on your device. It can be a web mapping interface. So, or it can even be like an idea.
Maybe some of you have seen this. It's a relatively new portal. It's basically a geoportal that connects to a number of servers up and down the West Coast.